Welcome to English 9, Unchanging Values in the VUCA World, featuring the text If We Must Die by Claude McKay, 1889 to 1948, Quarter 2, Week 8. I am Mr. Nelpran Sambalod and I'm your teacher for this course. Before we proceed on learning task 6, I would like it to look intently on the two images that we have on this slide. So the first image here has something to do with the EDSA 1986 People Power Revolution, which is known to the world for it used non-violent demonstration, which led to the liberty of the Filipino people from the Marcos regime. While the second image has something to do with a teen man who's inflicting harm on someone and he's stepping on skulls for maybe they protested against that teen man that led to their death. Okay? So let us find out how are these two images related to the poem or text that we will be reading. So is the first image, the EDSA 1986 People Power Revolution, directly related to the text? Or is it the second image that is directly related to it? So let us find out. Learning task 6. Read the poem carefully, then answer the questions that follow. So let us have the poem. Let us read the poem If We Must Die by Claude McKay. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mark at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their thousand blows deal one death blow, what though before us lies the open grave. Like man will face the murderous cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. If We Must Die by Claude McKay. Let us have the summary of the poem If We Must Die. Accordingly, If We Must Die is a Shakespearean sonnet written by the Jamaican poet Claude McKay in 1919. It is a poem of political resistance. It calls for oppressed people to resist their oppressors violently and bravely, even if they die in the struggle. Though the poem has most often been read as a call to resist anti-black racism, it does not limit its call for resistance to a specific kind of oppression. As a result, it has served as an inspiration to a wide variety of oppressed people around the globe as they fight for their rights and freedom. So that's for the summary of the poem If We Must Die. Now let us have the interpretation of the poem. If we must die, let it, let it not be like hogs. So what does it mean? The poem here, the speaker tells us that if ever they will die, including himself, then he hoped that it it will not be in the form of being a pig. So they do not want, or he doesn't want them to die like pigs, hunted and penned in an inglorious past, hunted and trapped in some dishonorable place. So he wanted to die with honor and not to die like pigs that do not have that do not have honor on dying, just being killed instantly. So while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, while all around us hungry hunting dogs bark like crazy, mocking us for our terrible fate. So you have there the oppressors that are mocking on them, so making their mark at our accursed lot. So as if the dogs are barking like crazy, mocking on them about their terrible fate. If we have to die, if we must die, oh let us nobly die. So if we have to die, let us die with honor. So of that is the plea of McKay to his fellow men to die with honor, to die nobly. Okay? Then we have so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain, so that they don't sacrifice their valuable blood for nothing. As if at least if they will die, then it will be for a cause. There will be a reason for their death, and not just dying for the sake of dying. Shall be constrained to honor us through death. Then even the bad people we rebel against will have to honor us even though we're dead. So that's the plea of McKay in the first 8 lines of the poem. So let us continue discussing the last 6 lines. So you know that whenever it's a sonnet, the first 8 lines present the problem. So what's the problem here? The problem talking about them dying dishonorably, so he wanted to change it. He wanted to make it a different scene and not the typical one. That's why McKay is saying that if we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot. So he's asking them to die not like pigs, but to die with someone who has dignity in them or in him or her. Okay? So let's have the sestet. Let us find out what is the solution provided by Claude McKay in his poem If We Must Die. So in the first 8 lines, in the octave part of the sonnet, he presented there the problem talking about him and his fellow men dying like pigs, dying without honor. So let us find out the solution he provided to finish that problem that is seen or presented in the first 8 lines. We have here, O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Oh, fellow sufferers, we have to fight our mutual enemy. So that's the first solution. He's asking them to fight their mutual enemy. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave. So let's show them how brave we are. Though it's given that they are outnumbered by their enemy, then he's still asking them to fight bravely. And for their 1,000 blows, deal one death blow. And for all the blows they give us, let's return one killing hit. So as if you have the saying, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So a life for a life, okay? So what though before us lies the open grave? And for all the blows they give us, let's return one killing hit. Who cares if our open graves are right in front of us? So let's fight till the end. Who cares if there's a grave in front of us? What's the good thing here is that they should be able to they should be able to fight back, kill also, kill also that oppressor who's wanting to kill him or them. Okay, press to the wall, like men will face the murderous cowardly pack. Press to the wall, dying but fighting back. Okay, so we'll fight these murderous cowards like men, our backs against the wall, fighting back even as we die. So the solution here is to fight back, even they will die on doing so. So you have there um, Claude McKay telling his fellow men to be brave, to fight for their right, and to die if there's a need for them to die, for as long as they will achieve what they are fighting for. Okay, so If We Must Die by Claude McKay. So let's try to answer the following questions in the next slide so that the more we can understand the poem. What's the message of the poem? Okay? So let's continue. I hope you were enlightened as we discuss about the summary and interpretation of the poem. Okay? Let's proceed. Before we proceed answering the given questions, let us answer the first question that I asked you dealing with the two images before the discussion or reading of the poem. So, is the image of the people power EDSA revolution way back 1986 related to the poem? Is it or not? So, in a way, it is. For both talk about revolution, both talk about fighting oppressors. But what's the difference? What's the what's the difference? You have in the People Power EDSA Revolution 1986, they were able to fight the oppressors in a very peaceful way, unlike in the poem by McKay, wherein he's telling his fellow man to fight the oppressors, even even using violence, even what, even it will lead them to death. Okay? So the second image there, the red one, having the Tin Man stepping on skulls. So we can associate it with the poem if it has something to do with those men, fellow men of McKay, dying while fighting for their rights. So turning to what? To skeletons, turning to skulls, being stepped onto. Okay? So now let's have the given questions. So what do the first four lines establish? So the first four lines establish the problem being presented by McKay to his fellow men. The problem of dying, dying without honor, dying like pigs. Okay? Dying like pigs and being mocked by the oppressors. Number two, what message does the persona forward to his allies? The message that the persona speaker or the speaker wants to forward to his allies is for them to be brave and fight for their freedom, even using or sacrificing their lives. Next, how does the persona describe his enemies? The enemies were described like mad dogs mocking on them. Okay? Then according to the poet, how can one die nobly? One can die nobly if he will what? One can die nobly if what? If he will fight for his what? For his rights. If we have to die, let's die with honor. And how will it happen? It will happen by dying not like pigs, dying not like pigs that were trapped in some dishonorable place. Okay, and how it can be done by being brave and fighting. Okay, so let us continue. I hope you are enlightened by the answers that I provided for the following questions. So let's have the next slide. Number five, using the Venn diagram below, compare and contrast the specific messages and or values presented in the poem and in the article in Learning Task 5. So we have here the Venn diagram. We have there the two articles that we read or the two texts that we read. So the first article, health workers speak to UNICEF about their struggles. So what's the message? We have here the frontliners asking the public to stop the stigma, a set of negative beliefs that a society or group of people have about something on them, for it weighs almost as heavy as their exposure to the virus. And of course, you know already, you learned also that the health workers or the medical frontliners showed their nationalism and for bayanihan, the spirit for bayanihan as they try to end COVID-19. Now, dealing with the poem If We Must Die, so what is the message? It calls for oppressed people to resist their oppressors violently and bravely, even if they die in the struggle. So you have here the value of being brave and fighting for one's right and fighting for one's right so that someone can die with dignity and not just like not just like pigs that die by being slaughtered and without dignity at all. So what's common? What's the common between the two texts? So the two texts tell us to be an advocate of positive values in this modern world. So we should treat our fellow men fairly and we should not judge them for we do not know what they are going through. So particularly dealing with the medical frontliners. Then here, of course, what they are going through, the the people of McKay. We cannot judge them, for we are not aware of what they went through under the oppressors of them. So we cannot judge them if they will be very much willing to die or to sacrifice their life just to have that freedom that they're longing for. So okay, so that would be all for number 5, dealing with this Venn diagram. Learning task 7. Research on a person in history or in your community who worked toward achieving social justice. Prepare an infographic and paste it in your notebook. Be sure to include responses to the following questions. So you will be making an infographic of your chosen person in history or in your community that advocates social justice. So what are the questions that you must answer in your infographic, or information that must be included in your infographic about that person? Number one, what was this person or group fighting for? So, what is being advocated by the person or of the group? Number two, what were his or her values as an individual or a group of which you think are still relevant today? So, what is that important characteristic of that person or of that group that is very relevant today, that is very useful to be possessed by the people of today? Next, what were some of the efforts it used in achieving social justice? So, how does that person achieve the the goal of him or her on attaining social justice from injustices? Okay, so were these efforts successful? Why or why not? So you will be including in your infographics the information there, if the advocacy made or the fighting made became successful, and you tell us why it became successful and why it was not successful. Okay, so, what is an infographic? So, that's the next question. So, infographics defined. So, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, an infographic or information graphic is a visual representation of information or data. But the meaning of an infographic is something much more specific. So, an infographic is a collection of imagery, charts, and minimal text that gives an easy to understand overview of a topic. So, it is an example wherein it is an infographic is a flyer or a poster that you can look at, wherein at one glance you can get all the vital information about what is being announced or being posted or shared. Okay, so we have an example of an infographics. So we use in the example striking, engaging visuals to communicate information quickly and clearly. So those are things that you must have in mind as you prepare an infographic. So see to it that you will be using striking and engaging visuals to communicate your information quickly and clearly. Because again, an infographic must be able to communicate the information that you would like to communicate to your audience by just looking at it in one glance. Okay, so let's check on the provided example of an infographic. We have here an example of an infographic. So, an infographic is an example of nonlinear text wherein you make use of striking images or visuals as you communicate your information about a chosen topic. So, this one, we have Nelson Mandela. So he's a well-known person who fought for social justice, and he even became president of South Africa, if I'm not mistaken. So you have here the important facts about Nelson Mandela. So instead of writing an article and having there many paragraphs about Nelson Mandela dealing with important facts about him, you can come up with an infographics presenting those important facts, and using engaging visuals or images, wherein the more you can engage your viewers, your audience, to read about the important facts about Nelson Mandela. So see to it that you will just be including the details that support the important facts line about Nelson Mandela. Okay? So that's how you create an infographic. So let's proceed. Learning Task 8. Recognize the present real-time heroes amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic by composing an acrostic poem with the praise our hero. Make sure to construct cohesive, meaningful, and grammatically correct sentences. So do this in your Google Classroom. So I would like you to create an acrostic poem about our dear frontliners. So you use there the words our hero. So check your Google Classroom, look for the Google Form link as you accomplish this task. Okay, let's proceed. Filipinos are known for our bravery, optimism, and resiliency, to mention a few. These important values are passed on from our ancestors to our present society. In this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, VUCA world, we are all reminded to uphold our positive values and be ready to face our own personal battles. How can you be an advocate of positive values in this modern world? In your Google Classroom, create your own slogan advocating the unchanging values in the VUCA world. So I have here an example. Being righteously cautious makes a person strong and live in the VUCA world. So check your Google Classroom, look for the Google form link, and create your very own slogan dealing with a given topic. So let's go on. Thank you. I hope that you have learned a lot from our week's lesson. Good day and God bless us all.